Hello everyone, welcome to Sentinel. Today I want to discuss about Major General Michael J. Turley having been reduced in rank to Lieutenant Colonel in retirement. And let's talk about his background and the circumstances as we know right now. Now I think it's a good thing that general officers are being held accountable. We've been talking about it for a long time, and it's good to see that they're being held accountable. But I'm not sure that they're being held accountable to the same standard. So let's discuss this. First of all, the allegations about fraternization and sexual misconduct came out about 2 years ago, and he was put on administrative leave. So the first question that I would have is, why did it take 2 years to resolve this issue? And while he was on administrative leave, matters of sexual misconduct or fraternization shouldn't take 2 years to resolve, and normally they don't for enlisted personnel or junior officers. So that's the first point. It took 2 years, and we'll kind of talk about it, and I'll kind of explain why I believe it took 2 years. So just bear with me. So I dug into the background of Michael J. Turley, and it turns out that he used to be a Marine. He joined the Marine Corps in 1985, served for about 10 years, then went off active duty and went into the National Guard. Attended OCS, got commissioned, and evidently did quite well in the National Guard, and was the Adjutant General for the Utah National Guard, a very prominent position. That's when the allegations started happening, and while the investigation was going on, he was put on administrative leave. But here's the kicker. While the investigation is going on, then Major General Turley is seen receiving then President Biden. That begs the question, how can a military officer under investigation be seen with the President of the United States? Somebody obviously dropped the ball on this. Or was he probably brown-nosing Biden to get away with his misconduct? We don't know because the investigation has not been made public. And there's also a photograph of him sitting down with Senator Mitt Romney from Utah. And, that begs the question, why has this guy got access to these highfalutin politicians, President of the United States and senators, for what purpose? And did they weigh into this investigation? Should he have been punished more severely as a junior officer or enlisted would have been punished? So these are all questions that are kind of out there. So this Turley dude gets reduced from Major General to Lieutenant Colonel because that's the last honorable rank that he served at. Why was he not just dismissed from the service? Obviously, you can't reduce an officer down to a private because as an officer, you keep your commission. So either you resign or you're dismissed from service. And there have been many cases in the past where officers have been dismissed from service as a result of criminal misconduct. In this case, what happens is Turley now gets the retirement of a lieutenant colonel, and it's fairly substantial. I mean, it's a decent chunk of money. Now I don't know what it is in terms of National Guard retirement and all that stuff, but nonetheless, why lieutenant colonel? Why was he not busted down to a second lieutenant, or for that matter, a candidate? Bust him down to that, and then tell him to go on his way. The problem is now there's a perception out there that he's hobnobbing with the President of the United States and Senator Mitt Romney, that maybe he had political influence, and why did the investigation take 2 years? So these are all the questions that are out there. I am happy that general officers are being held accountable, as they should be, but it shouldn't take 2 years for simple investigation to hold them accountable, and they should be held accountable to the maximum extent of the law. And why is that? Because of their position, because of their rank. As a general officer, you're expected to do better. You're expected to hold yourself to a higher standard. You're expected to hold yourself accountable. And if there's misconduct involved, you've broken the rules and regulations of the military and the Uniform Code of Military Justice, you should get spanked more severely than an enlisted person or a junior officer. It's really that simple. And that's how you establish one standard of accountability in the military. So these are all the questions that are out there. I'm sort of disgusted by this individual, and I'll tell you why. On a personal level, he was a Marine. He ought to have known better. He served in the Marine Corps for 10 years as enlisted, and he knew better. And then all of a sudden, he goes up the rank in the National Guard, and he does quite well. And then obviously makes poor choices. That then he tries to finagle his way, through political connections. And rather than getting dismissed, he still is a retired lieutenant colonel. I'm embarrassed by the fact that as a lieutenant colonel, this dirtbag gets to retire at the same rank that I had to bust my ass for 20-some years to retire at, and he gets away with it. I don't agree with that. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you agree that the investigation should have taken 2 years? Was there any political manipulation going on as a result of this 2-year delay? And do you agree that he should have been reduced down to lieutenant colonel, or even further, down to second lieutenant or an officer candidate for that matter? In the meantime, stay rugged, stay united, con out.